Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Hypnovision Studios. I am your host, Nicholas. Today, I really don't know what I'm going to name the topic of this video. Should I call it Inner Alchemy, or The Mind is the Pharmacy, or the one theme that has run true through my channel, the imagination itself, and the power to heal the body through the mind. But before we get started, I want to share a special announcement with everybody out there. Today, I launched my first online store for selling merchandise under the Hypnovision Hypno Waves branding. And I will put a link in the description. There is also a link on my community board. If you don't know how to navigate around YouTube, all you have to do is go to my page and you'll see at the top bar where it says videos, shorts, and playlists, and then there'll be a community tab. You'll be able to find a link to the store where I've already uploaded some t-shirt designs. And over the next coming months, I will be adding a whole lot of new stuff to it. It won't just be t-shirts. There'll be all kinds of other accessories and apparel, things that are related to DJs, things that are related to healing frequencies, and all kinds of interesting things that you will find themes on my channel throughout the past couple years. You'll start to see more and more stuff come up on the channel. And with that, guys, let's get started into our topic today. So the concept and the idea is healing the body using the mind as the pharmacy. Now, I myself do a lot of meditation, so I'm speaking from a place of putting the theory into practice and then experiencing results. If you watch some of my previous videos where I start to talk about how do we go to the emotional shift without going through all these roundabout steps to get there, what is the shortest route to changing our inner emotional state of being, changing the way that we feel about things? And that is simply to focus on the emotional state itself. Instead of making a list of 20 things that must happen before you can feel happy, you can simply focus on what it feels like to be happy now. And the imagination will go to work and start to send signals from the mind to the body to start to make the changes in the chemical process that is happening within the body. And from that point, we can start to really use our mind to drive those signals into the body and start to change the inner workings of the body and start to shift the emotional aspects of our body. And this, my friends, is really what alchemy is all about. So as we start to get into this, I want to give you some contrast and some different understandings that I hope that can be helpful for you out there, because it definitely was helpful for me. One of the themes, like I said, is imagination is something that is really heavy on my channel because everything does come from imagination. So I want to give you some contrast. You know, when it comes to magic, right? Most people think of a magician on a stage, and we know that there's going to be a sleight of hand. There's going to be some kind of magical illusion that can trick the mind, trick the senses into seeing something that's not there, or that wow factor. Oh, how did that happen? Like I didn't even see, it must be magic, right? But the imagination really is, now you see it, now you don't, because what was I thinking? What was I imagining? And we can quickly find ourselves lost in another train of thought, so to speak. So I want to give you some context as this video goes on between what is magic really, because the word imagination, I've said this many times, contains the word magi, and it contains the word I, as in E-Y-E, but it is I. I imagine, or I'm a magician, or I magnify through my imagination that which is the emotional body within me. So I want to get started, and we're going to start off with what is dark magic or black magic. And I want to give this some context of being through the imagination and self-talk. This is how I'm going to frame this. And this is not me saying that this is absolutely true or false. I'm just trying to help give some contrast and understanding between the differences and how it affects the chemistry in the body. So dark magic in the context of imagination and self-talk can be understood not as a supernatural force, but as a misuse of one's creative power, the shadow side of the mind's ability to shape reality. Dark magic is the unconscious or unintentional manipulation of energy, belief, or imagination in ways that limit, deceive, or destroy. It often stems from fear, shame, and control, and is fueled by repetitive negative self-talk or harmful inner narratives. Now, I want to home in on that last part right here. The negative self-talk or inner narratives. So that is the inner self-talk. The way that we think about ourselves is also how we think about others. We are constantly seeing the world through our own filter. So someone who holds a lot of anger and shame and resentment inside of them from a long-term pattern will manifest that in the way that they treat people, even if they are doing it in an unintentional way. We can get around people at times that we simply learn to tolerate the behavior, even though we know it's not good for us. And that's kind of what I'm getting at here with the harmful inner narratives. So let's continue with this. In terms of imagination, imagination itself is neutral, a tool of creation. Dark magic happens when we visualize the worst case scenarios, obsess over revenge fantasies, or use imagination to justify harmful behaviors towards others. Here's an example. A person constantly imagines being rejected or betrayed, reinforcing trauma loops that then manifest through choices, emotions, or even real-world interactions. So guys, this is a form of self-sabotaging. That's really what that boils down to. The misuse of imagination is worry. The misuse of memory is guilt. Interesting, really, when you think about it. So let's switch to self-talk a little bit. Our internal dialogue is a form of spoken spell work. Dark magic is present when self-talk becomes a self-curse. I'll never be good enough. People always leave me. Nothing works out for me. Each thought reinforces a belief structure that reshapes perception and behavior. It programs the subconscious to manifest undesirable outcomes. Guys, I know it might sound a little far-fetched, but as someone who has been on my channel for the last 2 years, like on YouTube, but the journey for me has been a little bit longer, closer to 3 years. The self-talk aspect of all this really does make a lot of difference, how we think about ourselves, because one of the things for me was, people always leave me or nothing works out for me is something that used to resonate with me. And it took me a while of not just doing affirmations, but starting to believe in myself in ways to reaffirm that things do work out. And I felt at a certain phase in this journey where it was like a tug of war of trying to be pulled back into an old way of thinking and then trying to push myself into new patterns of thinking. Everything does work in my favor. And actually, when I went into meditation, I could understand this very clearly. All the things that are happening in my body that I do not have to think about. If I cut my skin, I don't have to sit around and think about it healing because the process has already started and I am not consciously thinking about it. My body is taking care of that for me. Just like breathing, I don't have to think about breathing until I start to think. And once I think about breathing, then I have conscious choice to hold my breath or to continue breathing manually. But if I forget, in the moment that I forget to breathe, the body starts to do it again automatically. So there are a lot of functions inside of our body that happen automatically, and these things are working in your favor. So the aspect of dark magic, right? We see this through imagination of things that we are not aware that are coming through our imagination. Sometimes these patterns start at a very young age, as early as childhood, and they are like rings of a tree. They continue to expand as we get older, and we carry these patterns into adulthood. And it is certainly something that I think everyone out there, if you're listening to me right now, it's something worth considering if you are wanting to find more natural ways to be healthy and to have a mental health aspect to yourself also. Dark magic doesn't always come from malice. It often comes from the unconscious conditioning. This is the part where I was talking about a while ago, the unconscious conditioning, how we were raised, the things that we experienced in our childhood is not just our parents, but it's the different environments that we grow up in, even school, even churches, even our best friends and our circles and different things that we find ourselves gravitated to can have influence on how we think about ourselves. So it is an unconscious conditioning, inherited trauma, or the desire to protect oneself from pain. But without awareness, it becomes self-sabotage disguised as a realism of truth. Very interesting. So if light magic is using the mind to heal, uplift, and transform, then dark magic is using the mind to doubt, diminish, and destroy, often without realizing it. Both are within the same power. It is you. It's not about fear, it is about awareness. And once seen, it can be transmuted. That is something I will get into in just a second. The transmutation of energy, I've spoke about this a few times. One of the easiest examples for me to give everyone out there would be to take something where somebody makes you angry, and let's say that you enjoy working out. You take that anger, instead of reciprocating that back towards that person, you take that anger, you turn around and you go work out, and you go extra hard during your workout, and you are transmuting that anger that you felt between that other person, and you are putting that into the weights, and the results is the extra intense workout now becomes transmuted into the body to build more muscle, or to, if your goal is to lose weight and you get on a treadmill, you just go extra hard because someone upset you. Now you are transmuting that energy into something else. You are redirecting those emotions and you are channeling those into other means. So there's a lot, guys, when you think about psychics and you think about mediums and you think about all of these supernatural things, right? What is supernatural other than things of the imagination that cannot be seen by others? I can no more see what's in someone's imagination than they can see what is in mine until I open my mouth and I speak or I take action. Then someone might be able to guess what it is that I am doing. Very interesting, guys. So let's give contrast to what light magic is. So light magic is the conscious use of imagination with intention and self-talk to heal, uplift, and align with truth, love, and expansion. It is not about spells or fantasy. It's about inner alchemy, using the creative mind to bring life to higher outcomes. So interesting that to bring life to something is what we believe. So let me flip that in a different way. To believe is to bring life. If we believe that we are a victim, right? We'll go back to the dark magic aspect of all this stuff. If I think that I'm a victim, then I'm going to constantly manifest scenarios that reaffirm, yes, you are a victim. Yes, these things about you are true because it is the cause and effect. That is one of the one of the 7 hermetic laws, the law of causality, cause and effect. Every cause has its effect and every effect has its cause. So if I am in a victim mindset, then I'm going to go around and self-sabotage just about everything I touch, even if I am thinking that I am not self-sabotaging. That is the victim part because it's a misalignment. We are at that point really up inside of our head and our heart is more closed off, and we are using our mind to try to force things on the outside of us without the emotional alignment on the inside. So it becomes something where reality is a bit distorted and we can avoid accountability for things and blame things on circumstances on the outside of us. It's very interesting when you think about it in those terms. So light magic is the discipline of envisioning the good, not a delusion, but as a creative blueprint. It involves imagining yourself already whole, already loved, and already free. You see possibilities not yet visible, and you feel them into reality. Just like an architect, you design it before you build it. Imagination is the preview of life's coming attractions, and that was said by Einstein. Very interesting, guys. I had this talk recently. I have a TikTok channel, and I will put a link here right now for that. If you happen to use TikTok, there's some my content is over there. It's a little bit different than here on YouTube simply because of the formatting. But I had this conversation recently where the discussion was, does a thought come first or does a feeling come first? The concept was that a thought is originated from a feeling. I happen to understand that concept, but I also happen to see it a different way. I personally see that as a two-way street, because if I become aware that what I am thinking is causing me to feel bad, then I can reverse that and change the feeling. I can start to focus on the emotional state that will shift me on the inside, which will change what I am thinking. So I do believe that those two things are a two-way street. And when you look at the two hemispheres of the human brain, the logic and the emotional side, then you can see how there could be a two-way street versus it being a one-way street where the line of thinking or mindset is fixed into a certain way. I must have a thought after I have a feeling, or I can use my thoughts to change what I am feeling. So the two-way street versus a one-way street, if we look at this as a monologue, an inner self monologue, we could say or compare this in a way and say it's either a monolistic monologue, it's I or me against the whole world, or it's I collaborating, working with other people. But it's not just the verbal, it is how I imagine the relations with other people, the self-talk aspect of that. Very interesting. So we can start to understand that the mind has a large amount of effect on the body itself. In terms of self-talk, light magic speaks like a mentor, not a critic. I've made mistakes, but I'm learning. I trust myself to handle this. I don't need to chase what is already mine. It's not fake positivity. It's intentional narration of your inner story in a way that empowers the self, not fear. Your inner voice becomes your outer experience. This is something that Neville Goddard often, in his work, you will hear this. Light magic is remembering that you are the author, not the audience. So true, guys. The light behind it. Light magic isn't naive. It sees the shadow but chooses not to feed it. It practices presence. It forgives. It loves even with trembling. It's the alchemy of choosing alignment again and again until your outer world begins to match your inner world. And guys, I certainly experienced that with my channel. In the early stages, I was very not as confident on camera as I am right now. I would overthink a whole lot of stuff. And when I would go back and rewatch things, I'm like, I'm not even sure that guy is positive that what he's saying is even true. And so that's been one of those things throughout the evolution of my channel, to really practice what I preach and not say something unless I'm 100% sure, at least from my perspective, that I am comfortable with saying it out loud. The understanding of alchemy itself, we have the four major chemicals in the brain, right? We have the serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, and I'm forgetting one of them. It'll probably come to me before this video is out, but there are four major chemicals that are part of our hormonal makeup and also have a lot of different responsibility inside of the body. So if we get our chemicals out of balance, then it does start to affect the body. And there is like a feedback, because if our body is out of balance, then it's going to starve nourishment to the brain. It is just like how You could pour poison into the grass and it goes down into the roots of a tree. You don't see the immediate effects, but sooner or later you will start to see up in the leaves of the trees how the poison has started to reach the upper chambers or the upper levels of the tree, and the poison has taken a hold. So if we were going to take this understanding of the contrast of dark and light magic, and we are going to integrate these two together with an understanding and the intention to learn how to use our mind to heal our body and become the mental pharmacy for ourselves, and that way we can start to teach others that we can self-heal a lot of these aspects, and it takes the power of self-belief, and it also takes someone giving you nurturing, understanding, and kindness to start the process. The mental pharmacy, healing from inside out. There is a place within you, a quiet place, glowing room behind your forehead. We are talking about the pineal gland. We are talking about the left and the right hemispheres. We are talking about conscious and imagination. It is the mental pharmacy. Your prescription pad is thought. Every thought you repeat becomes a chemical instruction. These are the signals. When I opened up this video, I was speaking about the signals coming from the mind to the body. That is, every time we repeat something, there is a chemical instruction. When you say, I am safe, it lowers cortisol levels. When you say, I am loved, it releases and raises oxytocin. I trust my path, and guess what? Dopamine follows. And I'm starting to feel it, guys. Oxytocin rises. Oxytocin rises. Oxytocin rises. I am happy now. I feel the emotions of gratitude, of joy, of bliss. I am having a chemical reaction on camera in front of everybody, guys. I don't need a white coat to prove to you or to prove to anyone else that if you start to practice these type things, as crazy as it might sound on surface, if it's the first time hearing it, there is a lot of truth to it. And the more you practice, the more you believe, the stronger those signals coming out of the mind will get, and the stronger is received to the body, and the response, the time for the response starts to shorten. Your brain listens, your cells obey, your nervous system aligns. You are your own doctor, healer, and translator of vibration into matter. Matter, which is the body, right? Very interesting. Your language of self-talk. Speak kindly, not because it sounds good, but because it literally codes your body. When you say, I am healing, even when it hurts. I am abundant, even before it arrives. I am whole, even when you feel fractured. In other words, even if you think you are weak, know that you are stronger than you are. You are stronger than you know. Have a beyond a shadow of doubt belief that is the blind faith. Now, when you speak of blind faith, this is something that came to me earlier during a conversation, and I just want to openly share this with you, and I don't want to put this in an absolute way. But blind faith, when we do not have an inner knowing, could potentially be a slippery slope into dark magic or dark imagination, when we don't really understand the cause and effects of certain actions because we don't have the inner knowing or the inner belief that matches what action we are about to take. There can be unforeseen circumstances that arise from that. So that is partly not necessarily not having faith, but sometimes we can have blind faith in the wrong things. So take that with a grain of salt. It is very interesting when you think about blindness or being able to see in the dark when we are discussing things of the imagination itself. Imagination isn't fantasy, it's the preview room of your pharmacy. Visualize light scanning your body. Imagine wealth as a color flowing through your spine. See your organs smiling in harmony. Now that's interesting, guys, because there's months ago I was laying in the bed and I was having this vision of all my cells happily dancing with each other. And yeah, so when you start to go into inner thoughts and you start to direct your thoughts in those type manners, you will start to get some interesting responses from your body, and you will start to believe in yourself. And then that's when the fun starts to really happen and the healing starts to really happen. And you start to look in the mirror more at yourself and love yourself and smile at yourself. And then next thing you know, you're smiling at other people and you're seeing things in different perception than how you used to see them. You're seeing more light, right? We were seeing more of the positive, the green flags. The more that we see these things and the more we reaffirm these things, the more that saying everything works out for me starts to become reality. Mind to matter. When thought becomes feeling and feeling becomes breath and breath becomes signal, the body receives the message and rewrites the patterns. That's how energy becomes chemistry. That is how mental pharmacy works. You are not waiting on a miracle. You are remembering that you are the miracle. The cure was never out there. It has always been in here, inside of you. In ways that you speak to yourself, in the visions you hold, in the faith that you plant like a seed beneath your skin. So guys, I learned a whole lot through my channel because doing a lot of the research meant that I wasn't just reading stuff and like regurgitating stuff just to get clicks and views and to gain subscribers. A lot of this stuff, guys, I would try to educate myself on it, and then I would go into a meditative state. And once I would come out of meditation, I would start to write about my experience during meditation. So a lot of these topics, I would start to self-inquiry. Hey, self, is this true? Can I really start to change things inside of my body by how I am thinking about it? And as it turns out, there is a lot of truth to it. I wouldn't be sitting here if that wasn't true, because there was a time when I feel like my perception was more on the negative side of things than the positive. And there's a whole line of variations that ultimately led me to that point. But the moment I became aware was the moment that I understood what conscious choice really meant. Because it is much like a seed beneath the surface. We can't see the seed. We don't know how much growth is there or how close it is to busting through the surface. And when we don't really know, we have to wait until the breakthrough happens to know what kind of seed was planted. On the flip side of that, a seed will experience resistance right before it bursts through the soul level and comes into light. So sometimes, if you are experiencing a lot of resistance in your life, maybe there's something on the subconscious aspect of yourself. This is where the shadow work of stuff comes into play. Why do I feel this resistance? What am I holding on to inside of me that is starting to limit me from seeing these other possibilities? So when we start to ask ourselves these things, we can start to remove the resistance, and that's when the breakthrough starts to happen. That's when those miracles start to happen. And usually there's a lot of resistance right before you achieve a breakthrough on anything in life. There's the saying, for every storm, after the darkness comes light. So take that how it resonates with you out there. But the mind is truly the most marvelous thing that I can even consider on this realm of the earth, because it is everything. It is the law one of the Hermetics. All is mental. All is the mind. And everything originates from the mind. So do thoughts come out only after a feeling, or does a feeling invoke a... We flip that. Does a thought originate only after a feeling, or can a thought bring a feeling into manifestation? Only through awareness and only through imagination can either one of those two realities even take shape. Neville Goddard often speaks about the mental conversations. Again, this is the inner self-talk, the inner narration of our life story. And oftentimes we can be unaware of some of these different aspects because they are things that are coming through the subconscious, and we are not consciously aware of why. We don't understand why we do some of the things we do. And that is the shadow work, right? When we say, okay, I understand that I have this abandonment issue, for example, but why do I feel like I have this sense that people are always going to abandon me? And when we go inside and we start to work on this and ask ourselves, why do I feel this way? We can start to uncover the answer. And once we have the answer, then we have the conscious choice to choose differently, to imagine differently, to start to use affirmations to repeat that process and change that pattern. But most importantly, we also want to include the emotion and the feeling of that affirmation. I am happy. I feel the emotions of happiness. I am love. I feel the emotions of love. I am confident. I feel confident because I am confident. And who am I not to trust that I am what I speak over myself? Be still and know that I am. Very interesting when you think about it, guys. Yes, your mind can absolutely go to work and send in signals to your body, and healing can occur. But likewise, there's some other things that you must be aware of when we start to talk about healing the body with the mind. There's also what we eat and what we drink. We know that the body is 70 to 80% water, and we know that water holds memory. I've done a video on my channel talking about Dr. Emoto's experiments where they were able to flash freeze water, and it was able to retain memory of shapes based upon a group of people gathering around the water and either sending happy gratitude and loving thoughts and focusing, channeling towards the water, versus a group that spoke a lot of negativity over the water and then flash freezing it. They were able to see patterns within the water. So it stands to reason, at least on the surface, that what is contained within our body has a very similar function. The water holds memory. So with that understanding, and we speak lovingly and kindly over ourselves, we can start to change the memory in our body through the water. It's an interesting concept, and perhaps the first time you hear it, you may have a little bit of doubt. But if you are like me and you like to meditate and research things and you start to dig into it, you will start to find that truth sometimes is stranger than fiction. The other thing is, what kind of substances are we putting in our body? And this can be anything from pharmaceutical drugs to street drugs. It can be our eating habits. Do we have a healthy eating habit? Do we drink enough water, or do we drink too many sodas? Do we eat too much, processed sugars and things like that, that really do affect and throw off the different processes within our body? The closer that we can get to purification in that sense, the healthier that our body will be, and the healthier our mind will be, and that brings about clarity of mind, clarity of reason, clarity of being able to see things through the imagination, and being able to have that self-confidence of seeing things in the darkness of your imagination. And guys, I want you all to know that anything is possible, and that these are things that you can put into practice for yourself in your own life. And I guarantee you, if you start to practice it, it will start to give you results. The serendipity mysteries, if to know thyself and man shall know all, there is two aspects of this: theory and practice. First, we have a theory through the imagination. We can imagine something, right? Let's say I imagine that I can build a certain device. Nikola Tesla, for example, often used his imagination and built these complex things in his imagination. Now, these are theories. In theory, through my imagination, this should work. But the only way that I can test and confirm is to actually build a physical representation of my theory in practice. Same thing with Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the patterns of the outside world, but be renewed by transforming the mind, and then you can test and see if it's good and pleasing to God. So we are testing a theory in practice, logic and emotion, or we have a creative thought that is a theory, and then we have to analyze it, and then we take action. So that two-way street between the left and the right is absolutely important to self-realize and self-understand. And guys, I am so happy and grateful for each and every one of you, and I am so appreciative to be sitting here now. In just a few more days, I'll be able to reapply for monetization on my channel, and I couldn't be happier, guys. I'm very grateful for all of you out there. And with that, I'll see you on the next one very soon.